Hey there, Juno here, back with another YouTube video. I realized in my previous video I accidentally mistakenly typoed my name in my watermark as Juon instead of Juno. It was a complete mistake, and I didn't mean to do that at all, so please don't mind that silly little mistake. I'll try to remember moving forward to not make that mistake again. Anyway, thank you so much for the comments and stuff on my previous video. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll link it below. I really appreciate all the support and hearing your stories. This time I'm going to be discussing original characters as a concept as a whole, instead of just focusing on Mary Sue's. This time, I want to talk about my feelings regarding original characters versus canon characters as well, and just original characters overall. So, let's get into it. I really enjoy original characters. I've been creating them since I could draw and come up with stories for the characters I'd make up on paper for fun. I have some really old OCs I made ages ago as a young teen or a child that I still actively use as well. But something I've always found funny is how people act like canon characters are more valuable than fans' original characters or small creators' characters. While I understand why people love canon characters and grow strong attachments to them, some people tend to have a problem with acting like they are special in some way that small creators' original characters are not. What I mean by this is that they put canon characters on a pedestal, in a way. Hear me out. I remember a long time ago I made the argument that canon characters are just the creators' OCs, and somehow that was a hot take. I don't know how it was, but I distinctly remember being mocked by the person I was talking with about it. They basically told me I was incorrect. But how? It's literally the truth. All stories are just writers' OCs who got published. Think about it. If Twilight was posted on Wattpad, it would be a cringy internet artist's OC work. But because it was published, the characters are held on a higher pedestal, and some people do not consider them OCs anymore. They are now canon characters, when really they still technically are the writer's OCs. It's something I've always found and do find very confusing in fandom. Why is it that fans and people who aren't publishing stories are often mocked for their characters they create, or otherwise they can get picked on or harassed online for their characters, but no one goes after the writers of published stories? This isn't me saying I want people to go after the published writers instead, but why is it that people have respect for only one form of character and not the other? Especially as, like was a prevalent theme in my previous video, most people just want to create their own thing for fun because it's something that they're wanting to create. I'm talking about original characters, not fan characters made for franchise. If I created a story that I wanted to write and characters for said story, why is it that I'm more likely to be made fun of for my story and characters than published writers? Is it because they went through the effort of getting their work officially published? Do you think that makes them more worthy of respect? Maybe some do, but I disagree. I think that both are just as valid and worthy of respect as the other. One isn't inherently better because they went to writing school or were lucky enough to get published or tried over and over and over again to get published. Someone who creates stories simply to share within the net space of the internet is valid and worthy of respect too. Because at the end of the day, both people are still creating works of art. They're still building a world, writing lore, creating characters and meaningful bonds between them. And even if I wasn't writing a full-on story, but just had loose bullet points of ideas for a concept or story attached to a group of OCs I just want to have fun with, that still deserves respect too. Because I'm still being creative, making fun things, and it is just as valid too. Something I think a lot of people forget is not everyone wants to be a professional level artist. A lot of people think everyone needs critique, or everyone needs to be working towards the professional level, when really sometimes people are just creating as a hobby. I don't need critique or to help improve myself if I'm just drawing to have fun. I don't need to write a fully fleshed story if I don't want to publish it, and I don't need to publish it if I do write a fully fleshed story. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is I think that any level of artist is deserving of respect. Any OCs people make are worthy of respect. regardless of skill level or quality level. I shouldn't have to publish my OCs professionally to earn respect for my OCs, and on that note, I don't really need everyone to support all my OCs anyway. That's not what I'm arguing for. I'm not trying to say that we all need to like and support and adore every single original character out there. You're allowed to have your squicks and the OCs that you don't like, but at the end of the day, we are all deserving of basic respect in that regard. I don't deserve having my OCs bullied, and I don't deserve having myself bullied for my OCs, and I don't deserve being harassed over what I create in my characters when I'm not hurting anyone. I know this is basically the same thing I was saying in my previous video, but it just overall is how I view art in general. It's not fair at all to be forced into one specific bubble that other people want you to be in. It can be limiting to other people's creativity, and it's not fair for me to have to stop drawing what I want to draw, create what I want to create, because I'm not publishing it, or other people might bully me. It's like you're always deserving of being bullied these days, and in the fandom spaces from years ago as well, if you're not going to try to get published. It's just not fair, and it's messed up. It's what I've noticed lately in fandom too, that people only harass small creators and people who aren't publishing stuff in stores. It's always us small creators who get harassed. But like I said before, I'm not saying it to advocate for harassing the bigger creators, but to respectfully ignore someone's art instead if you don't like their characters or their art. OCs are valid, whether you have fleshed out stories for them or not. Some people just want to have fun drawing a character in multiple different scenarios with no truly connected story or plot, and that is totally fine to do too. Characters don't need a clearly dictated lore, backstory, world, or in-depth personality. If you want to do all those developing of OCs, that's totally fine, of course, but it is not necessary. Both styles of creating OCs is beautiful and valid. I feel like most people think that OCs are supposed to only be meant for in-depth story development, or fan characters are only meant to fit well within the rules of franchise's universe. But that's not the only way to create characters. A lot of people make characters to express individual ideas or separate story concepts between other characters. They don't all need to be extremely detailed or highly developed. Art is about having fun first. I really miss that pure, childlike joy I got when drawing and creating characters with no vision in mind. And I really think a lot of people are like that, afraid to be true to themselves as they once were or could have been as a young artist. When we were children, we drew things we wanted. We drew what our heart wanted us to draw. We drew what our minds wanted. We had no rules pushed onto us for creativity, so we made some wild stuff as kids. That kind of creative freedom is what I really wish we could all tap back into as grown artists. We deserve to have that same pure joy again from creating, drawing, and making characters. As we grow up as artists, we're surrounded by a ton of rules and other people who put out all these rules to make us all improve one way, or get better at character creation one way, or develop our stuff one way, the way other people want us to. So it's hard to grow up around all these rules which tells us to improve this specific way and keep our original spark and creativity that made us love art growing up. And like I say a lot, if you want to use these rules and tips for yourself, that's fine. But not everyone wants that for their work. Not everyone wants to improve. Not everyone wants to get better. Because some people are just hobbyists who do this for fun and for themselves, not to get better. And it's not up to you to tell them that they should get better. That's something I think a lot of people do forget, is that not everyone wants to become a professional artist. Not everyone wants to improve and get better, and especially not at the same rate as other people. If I choose to want to improve and get better, then I'll do it at my own pace. I will ask for help when I'm ready to improve. I will seek out the advice I need for things when I'm ready to improve. But as for now, I'm at a state where I'm comfortable with what I draw, and I just want to draw for the fun of it and create for the fun of it. And that is and should always be a totally valid way of thinking. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist that draws for fun and doesn't want to improve. There's nothing wrong with creating characters you want to create, whether they have a basic and minimal backstory or a fleshed out and in-depth backstory. All kinds of characters in that way are valid. We need to stop pushing that daily grind mindset where you always have to be improving or else you're not doing any good. And we need to stop pretending characters are useless to have without explicit extreme details. Because characters are very valid with minimal detail, no detail or full detail to their story or personality. And artists are valid whether they want to improve yet or not. There's nothing wrong with being content with your art. That basically wraps up my opinion on the subject, I think. Long story short, art and OCs are valid whether you want to constantly improve or whether you're content where you are now. Thank you for watching my video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them below, and also if you disagree, feel free to comment below as well, because I'm interested in hearing different opinions on these subjects. But also feel free to comment if you agree, because that would be really nice to hear also. Oh, and if you have anything I didn't say here that you want to add to the discussion, feel free to say so below too. I don't really have a solidified plan for my next video yet, but I will do my best to make one as soon as possible. I'm unsure how frequent my posting schedule will be either, but we'll see. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Anyway, I don't know if you heard that, that was my cat. It's something I've found and have always found very confusing in fandom. People to go after the published writers instead, but why